fast as I thought.
John Henry Irons, who was fascinated by Superman, attempted to replicate the superhero's abilities through the use of technology. However, his heart, intelligence, and tenacity are his greatest strengths. John Henry Irons is a hero crafted from his efforts and determination. Irons was a construction worker in Metropolis, and after being rescued by Superman from a catastrophic fall off a skyscraper, the Man of Steel urged Irons to make his life count for something meaningful. A former weapons engineer, Irons worked for the merciless Amertek Company and yearned to make amends for the tragedies that his designs had brought about. In order to accomplish this goal, he equipped himself with a suit of exoskeleton armor and adopted the primary alias of Steel. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Steel backstory explored. Dr. John Henry Irons, a talented weapons engineer for Amertek Industries, grew appalled when his BG-60 man-portable energy cannon was used to slaughter innocent people. John faked his death and traveled to Metropolis to avoid the company's pressure. Superman encouraged John Irons to live a life worth saving when he questioned how he might express his gratitude. Irons, who was employed in the construction industry at the time, attempted to aid Superman in his fatal struggle with Doomsday by taking up a sledgehammer, but he was buried in the wreckage. After Superman's death, he awoke and crawled from the wreckage, puzzled and muttering, "Gotta stop Doomsday." He recovered, but found that the inner-city Metropolis gangs, now unchallenged by Superman, were fighting a terrible gang war utilizing BG-80 Toastmasters, an updated version of his Amertek design. Irons made and wore a suit of powered armor in Superman's memory to end the conflict and the weapons that were being spread by Dr. Angelo Lapin, also recognized as the White Rabbit, a former colleague and lover from his time at Amertek Industries. In the reign of the Superman story arc, 4 Supermen rose to power. They were all given nicknames that had been used for Superman before. For example, Irons was called the Man of Steel, which Superman himself later simplified to Steel. Steel never claimed to be Superman, but Lois Lane pondered the idea that he was Superman's soul's walk-in. Lois met all 4 Supermen, who showed up after Superman was thought to be dead. She didn't think that any of them was the real Superman, but she was more sure of Steel than she was of the others. Steel got his own series that ran from 1994 to 1998. The series began with Steel leaving Metropolis and returning home to Washington, D.C., 5 years after leaving. He wrongfully thought that his old employer, Amertek, would no longer be interested in him. They attacked his home, debunking this. After this incident, and learning that Toastmasters was being used on the streets of DC, he reforged his armor to make it stronger and began to fight against Amertek, who he correctly believed was leaking the weapons. Steel didn't use the S symbol though, because he thought his fight might put him outside the law. In the series, we meet Steel's grandparents, Bess and Butter, as well as his sister-in-law, Blondell, and her 5 kids, Natasha, Jamal, Paco, Darlene, and Tyke, 2 of whom were foster kids. Early on, Steel battled Amertek and the gangs utilizing his weaponry. Jamal, his nephew, joined one of the gangs because he thought it would protect him, but the gangs ended up turning against him to get to Steel, showing that he was wrong. A bullet meant for Jamal hit Tyke instead, paralyzing him. Blondell was also hurt. Steel defeated Amertek and the gangs and focused on who was distributing the weaponry. This led him to Black Ops, led by Hazard. At this time, Steel had fallen in love with Dr. Amanda Quick, who had helped his nephew Jamal Irons recover from a tar addiction. John's feelings were returned. He told her about his life and adventures, and they became close and fell in love. Steel briefly helped Maxima, who was still on Earth and working with the Justice League, fight Dacine, an extraterrestrial tyrant. Steel learned to teleport his armor on and off. At first, it appeared solely by instinct whenever he was in grave danger, but he quickly learned to control it better, although he had no understanding of how it happened. Steel kept fighting against Hazard's Black Ops and the White Rabbit's comeback. Shindy, a bounty hunter, made an effort to eliminate Steel, but after learning that Hazard was engaging in child experimentation, he turned out to be Iron's ally. He joined the Superman Rescue Squad when Superman was tried for destroying Krypton. When Irons returned from space, tragedy struck his family. Because his handicap made him upset and angry, Tyke told the men who worked with Hazard who Irons really was. Hardwire, a cyborg released by Hazard, attacked the Irons family. Most of them were hurt only slightly, but Butter was hurt badly. Tyke and Darlene were taken back by Child Protective Services. Later, it was shown that Tyke ended up with Hazard. Hardware and Steele fought at the Washington Monument, and Hardware tried to kill himself. Steele sent his armor away to save his life, revealing his identity to the world. Hazard captured Steele, but he escaped. Steele recovered an antimatter weapon, Annihilator, he'd built and hidden years ago to use for his fight with Hazard. He also learned to teleport himself, not just his armor. He then tore down Hazard and his hideout, and he may have killed 3 of Hazard's young soldiers in the battle. Once Steele's identity was revealed, his family suffered. They were troubled by neighbors and crowds. Then Polaris, Parasite, and others struck. John Henry's grandmother Bess was killed, and the family went into hiding with Steele's friend Double. Steele realized that Black Op agents were not killed. They momentarily helped him battle an animated version of his armor. Steele thought that his guilt and the weird teleportation effects brought the armor to life. He was able to get rid of the monster and put on his true armor again. In issue number 34, there was a change to the title. Steele moved with Natasha to Jersey City, New Jersey, and started working at Garden State Medical Center. He developed a less powerful suit of armor with a Kryptonian peace symbol on his shield. While he was in Jersey City, he had a fight with Dennis Samuel Ellis, who was a resident at Garden State Medical and a rival for Amanda Quick's love. Hospital administrator and gang boss Arthur Villain hired Ellis as a bodyguard. Ellis took the name Scorpio after he was given a suit with a lot of hidden weapons. He often fought against Steele. In the end, Steele got back together with his brother Clay, a hitman that everyone thought had died. Before turning himself in, Clay used the identity Crash and was able to obtain a pair of Steele's flight boots in order to save his daughter, Natasha, when she required a blood transfusion. The series was canceled after issue number 52, in which Steele took over the hospital following the unmasking of his previous coordinator, Villain. In the DC Milestone crossover, Worlds Collide, Steele met Hardware, his counterpart. Each hero questioned the other's reasons for doing what they did. Steele thought Hardware was too rebellious, while Hardware thought Steele was too trusting and naive. Steele joined the Justice League around the time that the Steel series was canceled. Batman was worried that the League already had a lot of powerful individuals and needed more thinkers. During his time in the League, Steele was very important in stopping bad guys like Prometheus and the Queen Bee. During the DC 1 Million crisis, he was even in charge of the backup team, which was made up of the Huntress, Plastic Man, Big Barda, and Zariel. After the fight against Megadon, he stopped being a full-time member of the League, but he stayed on for a long time as a supporting member. He became a regular on the Superman series after relocating to Metropolis to oversee Steelworks alongside Nat. He also told them that he had known Superman's identity for a while. John Henry assisted Superman to build a brand new Fortress of Solitude, but he still kept in touch with the Justice League, as shown by the fact that he was able to get Batman to assist Superman locate Lois Lane after the Parasite took her. Steele withdrew from active duty during the Imperiex War after being injured while wearing the Entropy Aegis, an alien armor constructed on Apocalypse. It nearly swallowed his soul after he was abducted by the Black Racer while trying to release Doomsday and deploy him against Imperiex. Superman eventually fought Darkseid one-on-one with the help of the rest of the Super family to keep Darkseid's other forces busy. He asked Darkseid to release Irons from the Entropy Aegis after he defeated him, but only if he wouldn't tell anyone about the battle. They had to rush Irons back to Earth for urgent medical care since he was restored to the same physical state he was in when he put the armor. Irons created Natasha's new suit of armor during his retirement. Even though he wasn't actively fighting crime anymore, he was still a very amazing ally of Superman. He took Emil Hamilton's job as Superman's technology expert without meaning to. This was one of the many things that led to the rise of Ruin. Infinite Crisis' Battle of Metropolis prompted John Henry Irons to don his armor again. Steele and most of Earth's other heroes worked together to defeat the secret society of supervillains in Metropolis. However, Steele grew angry with life and what he saw as narcissism amongst Earth's superheroes. After the disaster, John tried to start a fight with Natasha so that he could stop her from joining the Teen Titans. Irons refused to let her go and commanded her to continue collecting debris, damaging her armor in spite. He later identified a previously discovered corpse as Lex Luthor from a parallel reality, Alexander Luthor Jr., absolving the real Lex Luthor from his recent misdeeds. John Henry hallucinated a week later at the Steelworks facilities due to an unknown metabolic toxin. Just before the lab blew up, it looked like his flesh was in the process of turning into metal. 3 days later, Steele was back in his armor when Dr. Midnight asked him to help with the heroes who were hurt when they came back from space after the crisis. He helped Mal Duncan get better by giving him pseudosites. Irons learnt from Kala Avasti of Star Labs that he'd been injected with Lex Luthor's exogene therapy, allowing his skin to transform into stainless steel and back. When he went back to Steelworks, he saw Natasha trying to make a new suit but not being able to do so. She thought it was hypocritical of him to take Lex's exogene treatment, but she didn't know the truth. 3 days and nights later, Irons showed up at a party Lex Luthor was having as a man made of living steel. In a frenzy, he attacked Luthor, demanding to see Natasha and threatening anybody in the way, but Natasha soon showed up to stop John from killing Luthor before he did. Natasha then beat John till he calmed down. He agreed that Natasha was right to prevent him from killing Luthor, but he insisted that he was also right. When he told Natasha to stop and come home, Natasha hit John several times, sending him flying into the water of the Metropolis Bay. He came back a few weeks later with a new suit of armor for Natasha to make up for how he treated her, but when he realized it was too late, he had an emotional breakdown. He later returned to helping lives and learned from Kala that exogene therapy enabled Luthor to remove any abilities he had given him. He then told the Teen Titans, as well as a former test subject who had lost his powers, about his suspicions. When John, Beast Boy/Changeling, Dr. Midnight, and Kala were looking into the Everyman Project on Thanksgiving, John noticed that his metal skin was peeling off. He then realized that the exogene therapy only gave him powers for a short time before they went away completely. After Natasha was taken by Lex Luthor in 52 weeks 40, Irons led an open attack on LexCorp with Raven, Aquagirl, Beast Boy, and Offspring. After beating the armed robot guards in Infinity Inc., Irons fought Luthor, even though his armor was broken. But Luthor beats Irons because he's gained powers like Superman's. Natasha utilized Irons' sledgehammer to shut down Luthor's exogene, and Irons won. John and Natasha revived Steelworks during 52 week 47. Steel appeared in the 2007 Infinity Inc. series, 1 year after Everyman Project. Natasha has been living with her uncle John Henry Irons and going to psychotherapy with Eric and Jerome. Dale Smith, another long-term patient who is a teenager, attacks his therapist and realizes he has psychic vampire powers. Smith uses the name Kid Empty. A secondary effect of exogene therapy is that when the exogene is suppressed, the therapy's energies linger, re-enabling the metagene in a different way. Because of this, Natasha turns into a mist-like substance. McKenna learns how to make copies of himself, and Storm gets a strong, overconfident female alter ego. Mercy Graves and Lucia, a psychic everyman, join the group. In issue number 8, the crew gets uniforms, code names, and their first mission. At the much anticipated end of the series, the Darkseid Club kidnaps the Infinators because thanks to the exogene therapy, they are unpredictable and can't be found by apocalyptic technology. They are also a wild card in the upcoming Final Crisis. Iron promises to find his niece. Irons has been making a new body for the Red Tornado with the help of Bruce Wayne, Mr. Miracle, Zatanna, the Metal Men, and a few other technical geniuses over the recent months. Unfortunately, the new body was infected by the Amazo program. Wayne and Irons utilized the Justice League of America's teleportation doors to throw Amazo, an android with the ability to use other people's powers, into a red sun. They then created a new body for the Red Tornado, an android with the power to create wind gusts from his arms and torso. When the Clock King takes over the Darkseid Club from Darkseid, he gets the prisoners. When the Darkseid Club is finally destroyed, Miss Martian sends a brain mail to Irons, who comes to free his niece and is finally reunited with her. In January 2011, Doctor Who author Steve Lyons authored a one-shot comic about Steel. Steel is the only one who can protect Metropolis from Doomsday's attack. Doomsday develops metallic armor and flying, opposing Steel's attributes. Doomsday swiftly overcomes Steel nanites and beats him. Doomsday carries Steel's prone body away. When Steel awakens in a dimensional prison with Supergirl, Superboy, the Eradicator, and Hank Henshaw, the cyborg Superman, all abducted by Doomsday, he speculates that Henshaw was used to keeping them alive, divided, and preventing them from working together to escape. Their subsequent investigation of their prison uncovers that they were abducted by clones of Doomsday constructed by Lex Luthor to divert Earth's heroes while he pursued the Black Lantern ring. Each Doomsday clone was sent after Superman. In September 2011, the New 52 altered DC's continuity. John Henry Irons initially appears in Action Comics as a young scientist working on the Steel Soldier program. He fights back after seeing Lex Luthor torture Superman under Sam Lane's orders. Iron promptly quits. When John Corbin goes on a killing spree after putting on the government's Metal Zero suit, John Henry helps Superman stop him by using his own prototype armor for the first time. He also uploads a virus into the Metal Zero suit that he made to shut it down if the person wearing it goes rogue. John Henry appears in Animal Man during the Rot World crossover, assisting Buddy Baker when the Rot overruns the world. Brainiac utilized Doomsday to infect Superman and distracted the world while the cyborg Superman and himself attempted to steal the minds of everyone on Earth. Steel and Lana Lang assist Superman, stopping Brainiac. Later, Lana and John begin dating. When Warworld appears over the Earth, Steel is recruited. He's paired with Batgirl to disarm a planet-cracking gun. they manage it with time to spare. With DC Rebirth, Steel now works with Lana Lang to protect Metropolis. He helps her both as her boyfriend and as a partner in fighting crime. Natasha Irons, his niece, and Lana make up Team Steel. When Lana's powers almost killed her, John was there to watch over her and find Superman to help save her. After she recovered, her powers disappeared. He, Lana, and Natasha visit Smallville while she copes, but she rejects him in anger. The three then return to the city to establish a test chamber to restore Lana's powers by pushing her through her fears and anxieties. The chamber did its job, and it was found that Natasha's Insect Queen suit stored her powers from the last time she used it. Later, John and Natasha are shown at Lana's apartment, where they are watching the news about Skyhook, the meta-criminal who took John's nephew Zeke. The two plan to go to the police right away to find out what happened, but Lana tells them she went alone, which makes them upset. John plans to seek Skyhook the next day despite Lana's objections, but John's brother Crash manages to find him first, hoping to get revenge on his son. John and Natasha get there shortly after Lana does. Instead of targeting Skyhook, the two forego their revenge to save Crash, entrusting him to Superwoman, who beats him. So what makes Steel so powerful? John Henry Irons is an engineer and a natural athlete who often shows a high level of strength that is impressive. He wears powered armor for flight, strength, and endurance. Steel changed his suit several times over the course of his career. The first Man of Steel design had a rivet gun on his wrist and a sledgehammer, like the one his namesake, John Henry, used. Irons used to have a metal version of Superman's S symbol on his chest plate as a tribute to the temporarily dead hero, but he took it off when Superman came back. Two later pieces of armor had a similar but different S symbol on them. A big hammer is another important weapon that comes with the suit. His most recent smart hammer hits harder the farther it is thrown, can fly on its own, and has a computer guidance and analysis system that can find a target's weak spots. When he donned the Entropy Aegis, he had godlike strength, durability, and growth. He also had energy wings that let him fly, could move through time and space at will, and could fire energy blasts that would break down a target into its parts.
We're still a team, Buck. We always will be.
Steel's appearances in other media. John Henry Irons appears in series set in the DC animated universe. This version lacks his comics counterparts' S-Shield and cape, and wields wrist-mounted lasers instead of rivet guns. His first appearance is in Superman, the animated series. He's a designer for LexCorp, and was first seen in the episode Prototype. He's entrusted with making a powered armor prototype for the Special Crimes Unit of the Metropolis Police Department, but the suit's neural interface system has terrible psychological effects on Sergeant Corey Mills. Superman tells Irons to keep working on the suit, and he does so with the help of his niece Natasha. In the episode Heavy Metal, after being fired from LexCorp, Irons becomes the superhero Steel and helps Superman fight Metallo. Steel is in Justice League Unlimited. He joined the expanded Justice League at the start of this series and shows up often, usually with Superman and Supergirl. He also shows up in the Young Justice Outsiders. This version is a Justice League member. In Superman and Lois, a version of John Henry Irons from an alternate universe shows up. This incarnation, introduced as Captain Luthor, is from an unknown other Earth that was destroyed by an army of evil Kryptonians headed by Superman and created by Morgan Edge on his Earth. Irons was also married to Lois Lane, who lived on his Earth and has a daughter named Natalie. After Lane told the news that Kryptonians were weak to kryptonite, Superman killed her. In response, Irons and Natalie created a suit of steel armor with Lex Luthor's AI and a kinetic hammer as the main weapon. Irons had to go by Captain Luthor because he couldn't change its recognition protocols. While testing a new weapon that might be able to kill Superman, Irons is sent back in time to the Prime Smallville, where he sees Superman in action. He starts looking for him because he thinks he will eventually turn bad. Along the way, Irons meets the Prime Lane and starts an investigation into her version of Edge. Irons subsequently uses Lane to meet Superman and beats him with red solar flares. While the Department of Defense takes Irons into custody, Lane figures out who Irons is by looking at his fingerprints to see if he's related to Luthor. She joins forces with her sons, Jonathan and Jordan, to save Superman. He's later set free after Lane convinces him to let Superman go when one of Edge's Kryptonians attacks the DoD facility. Irons leaves Smallville to find the Prime version of his sister, but he comes back when Lane calls him after Tal-Rho, who turns out to be Superman's half-brother Edge, lets General Zod take over Superman's mind. After Lane tells Irons that Superman is her husband, Clark Kent, Irons gives up his plan to kill him and is able to convince him to get rid of Zod from his mind. He then works with Superman to catch Tal-Rho and his assistant Leslie Lar. Superman gives Irons the DoD's Kryptonian weapons as a sign of their new partnership. In the last episode of Season 1, Irons and Superman team up to beat Tal-Rho. As Irons is about to leave Smallville, a V carrying Natalie crashes on the Kent farm. In Season 2, Irons tries to help Natalie get used to the new Earth, but it doesn't work until Lane talks to Natalie before she and Irons move in with the Kent family. The Prime version of Irons is shown by a picture of Parks. Irons is said to have been an expert in counterinsurgency and to have been killed in action years ago. John Henry Irons appears in a self-titled film with Shaquille O'Neal in the title role. The film was originally meant to be a spin-off of a new Superman film based on the Death of Superman storyline, which first introduced Irons as Steel in the comics. However, the project ultimately became divorced from the Superman mythos and languished in developmental hell, causing it to be moved forward without the film it was meant to be attached to. In Justice League The New Frontier, he made a cameo appearance as a young John Henry Irons. John Henry Irons appears in film sets in the DC animated movie universe. He first appears in Justice League Throne of Atlantis, where he appears as a construction worker. While being attacked by the Atlantean, he defends one of his co-workers while more of them surround them, only to have Superman come and defeat all, and salute John before he takes off. He next appears in The Death of Superman. John Henry first appears as a Star Lab scientist in the first movie, and is seen preparing a suit of armor at the end of the movie following Superman's death. He returns in the sequel, Reign of the Supermen, where he becomes the armored hero Steel to help fill the void left by Superman. Steel makes a brief cameo appearance in Justice League Dark Apocalypse War, where he is seen as one of the many heroes fighting back against the forces of Apocalypse. He and his teammates apparently perish while trying to destroy one of the energy-draining devices Darkseid was using on Earth. Steel is one of the numerous heroes who makes a cameo appearance in Teen Titans Go to the movies. When it comes to video games, Steel appears as a playable character in the death and return of Superman. He also makes appearances in Superman the Man of Steel and DC Universe Online. He appears as a playable character one more time in DC Legends. Marvelous verdict. John Henry Irons might not be the original Man of Steel, but the fact that he's a self-made hero who doesn't rely on the benefits of being an alien from another world to help him fight the good fight puts him in a category all his own, making him close to DC's version of Tony Stark. One of the first black superheroes to get his own movie and a constant ally of Superman, Steel is a fixture of DC Comics, having forged his own legacy as the hands-on tech genius who could be trusted to hack a world-ending robot, or if that fails, pound it into the ground. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.